Welcome to So You Want to Be a Real Estate Agent. This is episode 1 of season 5, and we are calling this episode Success Stories. So I am super excited because I have a special guest today who I'm doing kind of a special project with that I don't think we've talked about on the podcast yet. So we will reveal all of that. So, Jessica, thank you so much for joining us today. Tell our audience a little bit about you, where you do your business, and how long you have been in real estate.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here. My name is Jessica Provencher. I am the managing broker of Allaire Realty office in Bow, New Hampshire. So Allaire is a very large independent firm. We have about 65 offices in New England and Florida. And I just managed one of our small offices. My background before real estate was social work and education. I married my high school sweetheart. So I was married relatively young at 23, and we have 2 children, which we also had young at 25 and 26. So they're just 16 months apart. So yeah, it still is a whirlwind at home.
Yeah.
But social work and education, I'm super passionate about helping people, but they're also very political, can be in nature, and a lot of corporate. And I found it very challenging to juggle, to juggle 2 littles at home. My husband is an air traffic controller, so he works these kind of crazy hours, and it was really up to me. And I had taken a step back away from leadership positions to kind of free up more time to be available to my family. But then I was kind of not feeling all that fulfilled. And so I had always really been interested in real estate. We bought our first home without an agent. We sold it without an agent. We bought the second one. And so I just thought I knew what I was doing. And I didn't, but I thought I did. And so we had a conversation about giving it a go, and I jumped in. I was licensed in December of 2017, and I did 23 transactions in that first year. So
Wow.
it just kind of took off, and I love it. I love everything about it. I feel like I found my calling at 36. And, now that my kids are senior and a sophomore in high school and trying to figure that out, I just keep telling them, it takes a while to find that sweet spot, and you grow and you change. And I feel so blessed to have found a job I really love.
Amazing. And that you are obviously so good at. I have so many questions I want to ask you about what you just shared with us. And I think you're like the perfect person for our first episode of Success Stories, because talk about a success story. Your first year in, and you did more than 20 transactions. But first, I'm going to go to that. But first, I want to ask you about having bought and sold a house without an agent. Were you like that for sale by owner, for purchase by owner mindset, that you like just rejected the idea of an agent, or why?
No, because I'm a control freak. No.
Oh.
So my husband's a friend of his family, older than us, like his parents' age, had recently gotten her license, and this was 2006.
Okay.
So we kind of were working with her a little bit, and I just didn't feel like she was doing enough. Like, I was finding the properties, she certainly wasn't educating us on anything. She's a doll, so I actually found a new construction home by a independent builder, and it was in an existing neighborhood.
Okay.
And earlier in the day, this agent we had not signed a buyer agency agreement. So clue there that you should get those signed.
Yes.
And she had shown us like a 70-year-old Cape style home. And it was 270 and had a big crack in the foundation and no garage and a nice lot, but and then when I went home, I was looking and I found this, it was going to be new construction, and we had a choice. It could be a bigger colonial or a smaller colonial with a garage, and it would be brand new, and it was $270. And I was like, why are we going to buy, like, let's try and do this. And that's what we did. I learned a lot in that process. There's a lot of resources out there for first-time home buyers. There's not a lot of resources for first-time home builders. And the builder definitely took us for a ride, and but again, we were 25. I mean, he probably thought, but we moved in there, had overextended ourselves financially, and the rates were our rate was 6.625. And the market crashed, and we lost $50,000 of equity in 18 months. So we spent 10 years there. And then we sold it for a $15,000 loss 10 years later. So.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So lots of lessons learned in that.
Yes.
Okay. So I'm interested to hear more about the first time, like, builder buyer. Is that something you bring into your complement of services to your buyers now?
I mean, I try. New Hampshire's a very, like, independent minded state. So we have some big developers that kind of have their ways. But we do have a lot of one-offs, a lot of builders doing just one home or something. And then we also have a lot of home buyers that just want to build their own. They want to get a piece of land. And you know, that path is very different. It's different for financing, it's construction loans, carrying costs. So I don't know that I would call myself an expert, but it's certainly something that we discuss. And, you know, building has been hard the past couple of years, especially with supply chain issues during COVID. And
yeah, but it's interesting, and it's something we really haven't talked about on the podcast before, is dealing with new construction and helping buyers through that process, having had that experience yourself. Because while we are in this climate of extremely compressed inventory, one of the things that's happening is builders are grabbing like every single piece of unoccupied property or subdividable property that they possibly can and putting as much product onto those subdividable or buildable lots as they possibly can. And for buyers who feel a sense of desperation because the resale market is so very competitive and think perhaps like, well, there's another option out there, they often don't know how different the builder contract is than the residential resale contract and how much less protective of them that contract is. So
100%.
So that's a really interesting lesson you have. And, you know, for people listening out there who are either agents and have not thought about this piece and explaining it to their buyers, it's a really good thing to get educated about. And I was just, you know, thinking as you went through it, what a great differentiating service to have is like buyers of new builds, maybe we call it that, expertise as like a piece of service that you're providing. Because I think also too, a lot of buyers think, oh, well, you can't really do anything for me. And I feel like sometimes builders are like, oh, you don't need an agent, you know, not realizing how much leverage and how much protection they lose, often just by crossing the threshold of a builder's model with the builder's rep.
100%. And a lot of builders here will try and push you out, you know, and say, well, I'm not even going to talk to your agent. And it's like, well, that's a concern, right? If a builder's telling you that should be a red flag, because why wouldn't they want to talk to me? And you don't know what you don't know. And I think buyers' expectations of a new build sometimes are very different. They think, oh, because it's new, it's going to be perfect. That's absolutely not the case. They think because it's new, there's not going to be any repairs or expenses. No, there's no blinds, there's no toilet paper holders, there's no it's definitely not. There's no oftentimes there's limited landscaping, you know. And the timelines. You know, timelines I notice with buyers and sellers, you know, those are important. When are you getting into the new house? When are you leaving the old house? In new construction, that is very vague. Like you have kind of timelines, right? Because there's so many other factors. So setting proper expectations is really important. And just recognizing that what builders are willing and not willing to do are different depending on the builder. I mean, you have true custom homes where you will pick everything. And then we have developers that you pick some things, and so just because it's not built yet does not mean you can put in every HGTV, thing that you see. So it is definitely interesting.
Yeah. And back to the piece about the timeline, helping to navigate someone who is already in either a lease or a home that they own, trying to figure out this like variable timeline that, by the way, the builder's contract says they can change at their own whim without any real notice to you and with no penalty to them. But if you miss your date, there's a million penalties for you.
100%.
Yeah, it's very, and the financing piece too, completely different animal than with residential resale. Yeah. Interesting. All right. Let me pivot you back now to that first year in real estate, because I am so fascinated by the fact that you jumped in and did how many 20, did you say 23, 26 transactions?
Yeah. So I got licensed December of 2017. I was in training from January to March without working with clients. I started working with clients in March, and I did 23 transactions between April and December of 2018.
That's insane, Jess. I mean, that is like almost unheard of in real estate. So I have to ask, go ahead.
And I was still working full-time till May. What? So I had a full-time 40-hour-a-week job. I had 2 children at home. And I was definitely doing real estate full-time.
All right. I have got to unpack this with you because I want to understand what was underneath that success. So the training, first of all, tell me about that, because you said you were training for several months without doing real estate. What does that mean?
Right. Without working with clients. So I started with Lair under affiliate office. So I describe it sort of like a franchise. Okay. She doesn't have franchises, but so I had all the benefits of my current brokerage, Lair Realty Partners, and then it was run by a couple as the broker owners. And they were very experienced. They had come from a real estate family. They had worked for his uncle for a time. And so the training in regards to this is how you fill out a contract. These are the pitfalls. These are the things to be aware of. They provided us with top producer. So and they were very you use this. I attended all the weekly meetings, and then they also allowed us to jump into a Buffini class. So I forget what class it was now, or what they called it, but a full Buffini class early in. So I really had not too many questions. I mean, about the what steps am I going to do? You know what I mean? So, so that was the training. So actually, I was on a team at the time. So I joined on a team. So it was a 50-50, team up to a certain amount or whatever. And I kept saying, okay, you can give me leads. And he kept saying, you're not ready. And I kept saying, want to make a bet? And actually I won her over before I won him over. And she let me kind of, she started giving me, the leads that people complain about, right? Like the foreclosure, it's, but I was just so excited and determined to make it work. My very, very first showing ever. So I live in New Hampshire. So it'll be dark here by 6 o'clock, earlier, the closer it gets to winter. So this was in late February, March. And she did a lot of foreclosures. So there was a foreclosure she had just listed, out, think an hour away from town, in the boonies. There was snow everywhere. And I was meeting 3 different clients, all men, all people I had never.
Oh my goodness.
Foreclosure home, no lights, no water.
Right.
in retrospect, not the safest
That's what
thing
I'm
to
thinking.
do.
Like, agent safety, red alert.
But I was so excited. I was just like so excited to get out and do it. And then as I pulled up, I was like, oh,
Yeah. It's completely dark.
maybe it wasn't the smartest idea.
Wow. Wow. Okay. So those were your first showings.
Those were my first showings. Yeah. Out in the middle in the snow, which was
Holy
not
cow.
plowed.
Well, that's the kind of like experience that builds real estate character. If you survive it, we do not recommend, but
Yes,
definitely
exactly.
let someone know where you're going if that's what your first showing is going to be. And take some kind of, protective gear with you and a flashlight. But that is really interesting that is like how you kind of got into it and convinced her that you were ready to take leads. Was there some kind of like a threshold or protocol that you were being evaluated against?
No, I think their pattern or their process was kind of like, for a full-time agent, it takes like 6 months or 3 months to go through like all the training, shadowing, all this.
Mm-hmm.
And his attitude was, because I had another full-time job, that I was part-time. And my attitude was, I'm putting in full-time time. Like
Yeah.
I am putting in all the effort. And I'm ready. And so actually I went and got my own client before he started letting me take leads. And so of those 23 transactions, 11 of them were self-generated. Wow. And 12 of them were leads from the team or open houses or things like that. So, I mean, I definitely felt like that was helpful, to be getting those leads. I'm very grateful. But I think 11 transactions in your first year is pretty good for most people too. So
yes, more than pretty good, and that they were self-generated as well. And I know there are probably people out there listening right now who might be on teams who are providing them like maybe Zillow leads or realtor.com leads, and maybe they're feeling a little bit insecure about their ability to self-generate leads. So I want to ask you about what you remember about your efforts to self-generate.
Yeah, so I will say a couple things. One, both my husband and I grew up in this town, like in the town where we live. Mm-hmm. And we were both very good academic students. So like the perception around us, like we didn't have much to overcome, and we had lots of contacts. Our parents both grew up here, both sets of our parents, we had kids in the school. I also worked for one of our largest universities. So that was my full-time job at the time. So my first clients was a coworker in her 20s. They weren't married yet. That was my very first deal. And in fact, that same couple, just last month, we sold that condo and they bought a single family home. And it was so cool. They're now married. They have a daughter, and now they have a single family home. So I really dove into like Buffini-esque stuff. So I did 40 pop buys monthly starting immediately. And when I say, people say, well, who can I pop by? I mean, I was popping by my mom's, all my friends. It's like they hadn't necessarily raised their hand and said, I'm interested in real estate, but I was, how can I get them to know that I'm in real estate and that they maybe could tell somebody else, right? It was a way. And a lot of times, I did ice scrapers or, I made little bath bombs, and it was always like, thank you for supporting my business. Mm-hmm. But those things then could be given to somebody else. Oh, my friend Jess is a real estate agent. Or, I mean, my mom didn't need the car scraper, but I did it anyway because it was about habit and consistency and, all that stuff. So I started with a physical newsletter immediately, monthly.
Mailing.
Okay. I got on social pretty quickly. I mean, it was not pretty, but I was determined that everybody I knew on Facebook would know that I was an agent. So yeah, I just like put myself out there. I think I wasn't afraid to
Okay,
say,
yeah.
this is what I'm doing and I can help you. And I see it with a lot of new agents. There's that fear. I don't know if they're afraid if they're not successful, they will have put that out. But it's like, you're not going to be successful if the people who already know, like you and trust you, don't know you're in real estate. Like,
Exactly. Well, do you ever get, because I get this a lot from people where they are like they want people to know they're in real estate and they are pretty determined to make a go of this as a career, but they don't want to be like perceived as salesy. They don't want to be like the real estate agent who goes and is like, and the commission breath and make everybody buy or sell with me. How did you get over that?
because I mean, part of it is the belief system,
Yeah.
right? Like, I truly and honestly believe, even with my first home experience, that owning property is the financial differentiator in this country. I think it is the difference between generational wealth. I have personally seen how not only can it improve our financial life, but your quality of life.
Yeah.
Living as a family in a space that works for you just improves all of those relationships. So for me, it was never about, I need you to buy a house. It was about, you need to buy a house because I love you and I care about you. And this is going to make such a difference in your life. And it was about realistic things. I mean, a lot of people in my not cohort, but like age bracket friends, a lot of us got stuck in 2008. Like, it was painful. Yeah. And I can't tell you how many of my friends were living in homes that no longer worked for them with the idea that there was no way out.
Right.
Or like, hey, I have to stay here because my kid's going to go to college. And being able to come to them and say, listen, I get it, but I've been hearing you complain about this house for yada, yada years. Can we just look at this? If you sold your house for X and you paid off X, Y, and Z consumer debt, and we bought a house for Y, your payment might be slightly more, but your overall debt burden, because you paid off that consumer debt, is lower. And, what does that do for sending your kid to college? Or, and I mean, it changes people's lives. I really, truly believe that. And so I think that that's what comes across. And I'm never saying, calling my clients or my past clients or my friends to say, hey, in the past 2 years, you've gained $100,000 in debt. It's time to sell. I call and say, hey, what a great investment. Are you looking to do any home improvements? What rate are you getting on your son's student loans? Like, where can we tap into this? Should you buy an investment property? It's really about helping them achieve their long-term goals. I'm just the expert giving them the information that maybe they thought they couldn't do.
Phenomenal. So you are really taking more of a holistic look at a financial strategy overall with your potential clients and the people that you know.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's even as simple as like renting versus owning, especially in this market, it's been tough. And New Hampshire is very, very much still a seller's market. We have a severe shortage of inventory. Currently, we have a shortage of 40,000 housing units in the whole state, 40,000. So that's only expected to continue to grow. Yeah. So when I look at clients and they're like, okay, well, now I can't get the house I want, we're going to rent. It's like, all right, so you're going to rent a garden style apartment, single family here in Manchester, which is the biggest city in the state, a 1-bedroom garden style condo without the condo fees is $1,700 a month. Oh my God. So you could buy that. And maybe it would be $2,000 a month, but at least you would be gaining equity. Right. So you're still going to live in something less than your dream home. Why would you rent it from somebody if you could buy it yourself? And then in 2, 3, 5, we can sell that, take the equity and get you into the real house you want. Or maybe you save it and you rent it as an investment property. And now we move, I think it's about helping clients see long term.
Yeah, absolutely. And what would you say to the agent listening who is thinking, it sounds like she has a lot of financial savvy, because it does, and is kind of new getting into this. How can they learn to use some of these strategies to help their potential clients think through that eventual outcome they're trying to achieve?
Yeah, I think there's so many resources. First of all, I think KCM is great
Yep.
to really give you factual information.
Yep.
I think that the MLS is huge, especially if you've been working with a client for a long time that's not moving forward. The MLS can really go, okay, look, this is the house we looked at 18 months ago. It was listed for this, it sold for this. Or actually, it's easier with condos, and then just be like, this is the condo next door, and now it's going for this. Like, imagine what would have happened. I think your lenders are super helpful. Yep. I really encourage people to make sure they find creative lenders. And I don't mean creative in the sense of illegal or, doing shady stuff. Right. But I mean, there are lenders out there that if you send a client to them that needs some credit repair, they're like, ugh, that's not what I work with my clients for a long time. And if it requires, I hope that I'm their agent for life. So if it takes them 2 years before we actually buy, I'm okay with that. I need the lender to be okay with that too, and be willing to do the work today to set them up for success, not too far down the road. And if you have a lender like that, that lender can really help you understand the value, the improvement. And I talk a lot in sweeping, terms, versus the lender really will be able to tell you, you spend this much on interest or this much on whatever, and this is the real numbers of equity and stuff like that. So
yeah. Do you enlist a financial planner at all to help your clients make good decisions?
I don't for my clients. I haven't thought about that. It's I have one for myself.
Well, I'm sure your financial planner would love some referrals too, but I was just thinking for people who don't really understand how all the pieces work together, or, maybe they have clients who have really never thought about how all of the pieces of their financial life influence one another. If there's a financial planner who we can kind of couple them with, who can help them think through all those pieces, even things like you mentioned college debt, right? Thinking about how that can either be a write-off or a debt that's purely something they're going to have to carry. It's good to have somebody else maybe who can help give that wisdom. And if you're a newer agent trying to understand this, and you can kind of shadow a conversation or two, or help have the financial planner help you understand how they're positioning a strategy, then maybe you get a little bit of education there as well. Now, let me ask you about taking you back to like doing those pop buys with your mom, for example. I know there are a lot of agents too, especially those who are dual career. And it sounds like you are fully dual career. Some agents call it part-time. I call it dual career, because if you're going to be successful, you have to think about it as you have 2 full-time jobs. One that's really full-time plus, because we all know that to be successful in real estate, you're typically working in excess of 40 hours a week. How did you get that original set of people in your life to begin to think of you as a real estate agent rather than your previous profession?
I don't know. That's a great question. I mean, I think I have a personality that's a little bit what's the nice gentle way to say
I'm thinking like positive, bubbly.
Yeah, okay, thank you. I was thinking bossy. So I think that I am also just a learner by nature. Like, I am all about sucking up. I can be, it's almost like that hyper focus that they talk about that some people with ADD and stuff have. Like, that's me. I like get into something and I just like am totally immersed. My husband would joke because, when we were getting into our first apartment, I would always watch Apartment Styling. And then when we were getting married, I was always watching the marriage shows. And then when we were having a baby, the pregnancy stories or whatever. Yeah. I just, so part of what I did is, while I was taking my real estate class, I met with everybody I knew in the industry. So lenders, processors, other agents, title company. If I knew someone and I knew they worked somehow in housing, I took them to coffee. I also started reading, podcasting. So like I had a lot of ideas to start with, and then I felt the need to share them with everybody.
Brilliant. And you were networking as you were doing it and building a database of people who are going to refer back to you. That's so phenomenal. Wow.
Yeah. So I think I just kind of was like, this is what I'm doing, and you're all going to help me. And, some of them were good friends, some of them were close, like my family, and some of them were like my daughter's friends' moms, and they ended up buying and selling with me a couple years later. So it's like I think a lot of newer agents expect immediate results, right? Because they want a closing tomorrow, and so they do one round of Popeyes and they go, well, I spent $50 and nothing came of it. Right. And it's like you have to keep doing it. Yeah. you have to do the other things, and you have to layer, and you're building a business, not a year. You have to like be planting seeds that some may bloom in the next month or two, and some might not bloom for a year or two, but they deserve the same level of attention. And I think that really helped me. And I convinced myself. I also hear, sorry, I'm going off, but a lot of new agents will say, well, I don't know what to do with my time. Like, I have nothing to do because I have no clients. It's like, no, if you have no clients, your job is to get clients. Yep. So every time I read a book, every time I read a podcast, every time I was making Popeyes, or to me, that was work. I was putting that in the real estate work checklist. So I was so excited to make this happen that I always wanted to be working on it. And so I was always doing something,
Yeah. It makes a ton of sense. And I think
that helps
to think about it. So I want to get tactical with you on the Popeyes. Some of the people listening probably know who Brian Buffini is. Some may not. But just little background on Brian and what he does and did is he teaches how to build a business through referral. And Popeyes is one of like the staples of his the foundational pieces of his strategy. And I remember going to a Buffini event very early on in my career, and he would always say, you never visit somebody without one arm being longer than the other, meaning like you always take something with you. So that was part of your strategy, I'm sure. Do you remember what like the early things, besides you said the ice scraper, and you said you had like a newsletter, what else would you bring to people? And also, what did you say?
Love it. I remember all of them. So my very first Popeyes, I handmade bath bombs.
Okay, those were the
best. And it was in January, remember? So they looked like snowballs, and I put them in fancy gold wrapping, and I wrote the tag said, I'm snow thankful.
That's so cute.
So what I would do is I would hand deliver them to the door. So I would knock on the door. If they were not there, I took a video of myself in front of their door. I said, hey, it's Jess Provencher. I'm just bringing you a little something to say thank you for supporting my business. If you have any questions about real estate, your home's value, or anybody, give me a call, whatever. So I did that. I did the scrapers. I did mums. I love mums. I did pots in the spring with flower, pretty much everything you can think of. That has evolved because as my client base has grown, it became just impossible to get everything.
Yeah.
So I have a very extensive gifting program for my top 100. And I have all their birthdays, anniversaries, spouses' birthdays, all that. We have a whole gifting menu that I reconstitute every year. So we have like female birthdays, male birthdays, kids, pregnancy, anniversary, get well soon. I mean, all the things you can think of. And when I see something on social, for example, an old client, not an old client, a previous client, they just got pregnant. Mm-hmm. So that goes immediately. I have a pregnancy package and it gets mailed to them. Congratulations, blah, blah, blah. And then we do their birthdays. So every month my assistant pulls everybody's birthdays and they get a hand-picked gift from me sent to them. Happy birthday. We have gifting associated with our transactions as well. So like a welcome gift, stress relief box when you go under contract,
Love it.
Moving boxes and tape and all of that once you get through inspections. And then we have, I have a tie-in with a local chocolatier and we do these chocolate gifts. It's chocolate chip champagne bottle and all these things.
Cool.
So that piece of really acknowledging them and thanking them and celebrating all life's big events with them is huge for me. And I would say that started with Popeyes.
Wow. And the evolution of what you've done there is brilliant. So you have a whole system in place now to handle that client gifting, which helps
Yes.
with the client experience and then client repetition and retention over the lifespan of the client. That's so brilliant. So really quickly on that, I feel like I could have a whole episode, and I might have to with you on this because this is such a cool strategy. When you say you repopulated, is it you going in personally and re-choosing like new gifts for each calendar year?
So my assistant and I do it together.
Okay.
So I like meaningful gifts. So I have favorites, and every year I have some specific things that I really like that are meaningful to me. For example, and now of course, because we're talking about it, I'm not going to remember what they're called, but they're these homemade dolls. They come in different sizes, and for every purchase, you feed a starving child for a week.
Oh.
And so I like to give those for when the baby's born. The clients love them because people take pictures of their babies now every month.
Yeah.
And it's cool to have a doll next to them, and then you see how they get bigger than the doll. And then basically the gift I gave them is in the pictures of these kids for however long.
They're thinking of you every single time they're documenting the baby's growth. That's brilliant.
You got it. And we do things like a lot of monogrammed stuff that's special. But I'm always like kind of looking on Etsy, or I like meaningful things. So every year I kind of come up, or something I love. I don't think it's in here, but I have a purse that I got from a networking event. It's like the perfect little clutch. It comes in a billion colors. So like that's on there, right? Like, because it's something I love. And I think, my clients might love that as well. And yeah, anniversaries, get well. I had a client just have surgery, so we sent to get well, and they don't know you're paying attention. That's what's cool, it's so it's so meaningful to them that they know that I'm still thinking about their life and cheering them on. And
that element of like beautiful surprise is just absolutely breathtaking. That is beautiful. Oh my gosh. Yeah, I definitely feel like we need to have an episode on this. Like I want to learn what you're doing more than anything. But going back to, okay, you had the personal piece with the Popeyes and the gifting. You have the social media piece, and you started to dig into social media, it sounds like almost right away. And then you had a physical mailer going out. So for people listening, these are like 3 pillars of a very stable lead generation system that you put in place almost right away. And look at the results that it rendered for you. On the newsletter, tell us how you're doing that.
So I still send the newsletter every month. When I started, I had no money. So I printed these and folded them and did them myself.
Okay.
I now have them printed. It's called the Pro Report. Yeah. And
for those who are just listening to it, it's folded, like it's mailed in half. So it's almost like
so it's like a magazine.
Yeah.
And then you fold it and it gets mailed like that.
Beautiful. Really, really nice.
So I will say that my brokerage creates an initial version every single month without question. Okay. It's in Canva. So we then go in, and now originally this was not the case, right? in 2018, we didn't have Canva, but they would create one, and I would just lean on them. Now it's all branded to me. The colors are changed. I changed the pictures and stuff like that. And again, it went to any human being I had a mailing address for. Like, so a lot to family, and not just local family. So my stepfather is from Connecticut. It's a very large family in Connecticut, which I have all the addresses for. So I sent it down there. And one of my first clients the first year was my stepfather's cousin child, who happened to be moving from Texas to New Hampshire. And they were like one of my first. So I think people do that, like, oh, well, why would I send this into them in Connecticut? Why not? I mean, this is like $1. Like, do you know what I mean?
You never know. You never know who's going to see that. And then look at that. It turned into a transaction for you.
Yes. And then I did the same thing with emails. I automatically had like kind of an email going out that was initially created by our broker. Was like, but now I use BombBomb, and again, specially curated, and we send that out weekly. So that goes out weekly. The new physical newsletter goes out monthly. Social media is an ever evolving.
Oh yeah. Absolutely. So you really hit like all of those things. And I know your business has developed exponentially since you started, but to have that kind of result your very first year as a dual career agent, a real success story. You've shared so much with us today. I want to ask you one more question. I can't believe we are already like past our 30, but this has gone so fast, and you've given so much value to the audience and to me. Thank you for sharing all your strategies with me. If you had to give one piece of advice to somebody who is like you and was starting out in their career, is starting out in their career right now as a dual career agent, and feels that hunger, feels that drive to make this happen, what piece of advice would you give?
I would say commit. Just commit. Like, there's no way, if you're doing the actions on a regular basis, that the business won't come. I can't promise you how quickly it will come. But what I can say is, if you are consistent and you commit to doing the actions, whatever they are, whatever fits for you. This is what resonated with me. But if there's something that resonates for you, just consistently do that, and it will come. Don't give up.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Oh my gosh, Jess, thank you so much for sharing everything that you have shared today. And the project that I alluded to at the very beginning that Jess and I are doing together, and how we met originally, is we are both in coach development to become coaches. Keep your fingers crossed with us. It is October 18th, 2023, as we record this. We're in phase 2 of coach development. And this is where the kind of the rubber hits the road. We get to find out whether we're going to be invited to become coaches for the Tom Ferry organization. And for both of us, the Tom Ferry coaching ecosystem and organization has been transformative to our businesses. And we believe in it so much that we are excited to try to become the coaches that have helped us get to where we have gotten in our business. So we've learned a ton from each other already, and we'll keep you posted about how our journey goes. But as you can see, Jessica is going to make an incredible coach. She has so much to share. You do. And I mean, your spirit and generosity just comes through everything you do. So good luck to both of us. All right, Jess, if people want to find you, if they want to learn about your business, your team, your future coaching practice, how can they get in contact with you?
I am at Pro Homes NH everywhere. So Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and you can also email me at jessica@prohomesnh.com. I am happy to talk to anyone. I am a big believer, and there's plenty to go around. So I'm happy to share anything that I use. And I'd love to hear from you all.
Awesome. Thank you so much again for being on the show. Thank you, everybody out there, for listening. Feel free to check us out. We are also going to be distributing this on Audible, so you can find us there as well. Oh, cool. We so appreciate you checking out season 5. We have lots more to come, and we will keep you posted on our coaching progress. Thank you. Thank you. And we will see you next time. This has been So You Want to Be a Real Estate Agent.
Wondering how people become the go-to market expert in their neighborhoods like I did with my name on the window and my Main Street office here? Well, this book shares all my secrets and that of many other local top producing agents who are the famous agent in their marketplace. You can get your copy of Farming for Real Estate Agent anywhere books are sold.